we want to make sure that if you're considering this as a business model, you're coming into this eyes wide open, and we'll tell you how it really is.
Today, we're diving into a crucial topic for anyone considering dropshipping. It's all about what is possible with dropshipping. Now, this is a question we hear a lot for people that are considering starting, Lewis. So today, we're going to talk about setting realistic goals, what success looks like, and really laying out the path and what people can expect when they get into a dropshipping venture today. So, Lewis, you have deep experience with this subject, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely vital to set the right expectations from the start with dropshipping, because it can be incredibly rewarding. But obviously, it's important to know what you're getting into and certainly understand what's achievable as well. So looking forward to breaking that down for our listeners today. I know when I first started, I remember thinking dropshipping was potentially this kind of quick path to easy money. I was quite naive and early on in my journey, certainly of entrepreneurship. And I definitely had a shock when I went in with that mindset, because hard work, dedication, graft that you have to put in, like with any business. And you create a business that means eventually you never have to trade your time for money by working a job again. So that's the kind of the balance, right? Yes, there is a lot of effort. The choice is you either work hard for someone else in your job from now until you retire, so through your entire career working incredibly hard, grafting away, or you work hard now for yourself, you front load the effort, you build a sustainable business to step back after 6, 7, 8 months. So I believe that truly understanding the journey ahead better prepares you for the hard work that's inevitably going to be required. So we want to make sure that if you're considering this as a business model, you're coming into this eyes wide open, and we'll tell you how it really is. In today's episode, we'll really break it down for you so that you fully understand what the road that lays ahead of you looks like.
Yeah, exactly. The clearer picture you have of what's ahead, the more likely you are to attack it and really be successful with knowing what to expect. I love the point you've mentioned already, which is similar to something I've heard recently, where when you start a business, it starts harder and then gets easier. Whereas if you continue in a 9-to-5 job, starting in a job starts easy and gets harder over time. Which I definitely agree with, which is something that we'll touch on, I'm sure, in this episode today. But we'll start off with the basics, Lewis. There's a lot of people that approach us that want to get started in dropshipping. They're looking to achieve financial and location freedom. But can you give us a breakdown of what dropshipping actually is, and why does it appeal to people looking to achieve financial and location freedom?
Of course. So in its simplest form, dropshipping is just a retail fulfillment method where a store doesn't keep the products that it sells in stock. Instead, when we sell a product, we just purchase it from a third party and have it shipped directly from them over to the customer. So that means that we never have to handle the product directly. So when I first kind of found out about this, it was actually in the 4-Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss's book. I remember reading about the concept of dropshipping, and I just remember the relief of thinking, so I can start a business and I don't have to invest huge amounts in inventory up front and order these like container loads worth of stock. Because as an inexperienced entrepreneur, that risk felt huge to me. What if I ordered it and there was a manufacturing mistake with a lot of the products? Or what if it didn't meet certain requirements? Or what if there was a quality issue? Or, there's so many, or what if it got damaged or I got scammed? Or there's so many worries with that. But I realized that with dropshipping, it would allow me to start with limited capital. I didn't have tens of thousands of pounds in savings. I worked in a decent job, but like many people, I'd probably only put aside the £5,000 to £6,000 that I had in like disposable cash that I could use to do this. And so I'd built a bit of financial buffer, but I didn't have hundreds of thousands to pour into buying a load of stock and launching a brand from scratch. So I wanted to do it right the first time. I didn't want to put that money into stock that may never sell, or that may sell but be at a terrible margin, or, all of the different downsides that come with doing that. And aside from the risk of doing that, the flexibility of running my business without having to hold any stock was also a huge game changer for me, because the flexibility meant that I could do it from anywhere in the world. So yes, there's a lot less risk because I'm not putting money into stock, but it also means I don't actually have to worry or think about stock. So the physical space that I save, not having to have a warehouse or clutter my house with goods, but also the headspace that I save mentally by knowing that, okay, I can go and work on this business from Thailand or Bali or Dubai or Vietnam or wherever, and just have a laptop and just run the business from a cafe with a coffee, really like low overheads, but also like low mental strain, because I have, my brain is not cluttered with all these thoughts of, where's the product? How's the inventory going to work? Where's the third party fulfillment center? And it just becomes this kind of really cluttered start to business. And I think as an entrepreneur just starting out, you want to keep it simple. If you think of this business model like managing an online catalog, do you remember the Argos catalog, right? That you see, and you walk past Argos and they've still got it in there and it's all laminated now. But imagine you're running an online version of that and customers browse them and then they buy them. And when they buy the products, your supplier handles the rest, much like Argos do in many cases. They're often dropshipping with many of their suppliers as well. So our model of the home turf advantage, unlike traditional dropshipping that you might have heard a lot of bad press about, the kind of AliExpress cheap products from Temu and China and stuff, our model involves higher priced items that get delivered from UK distributors, so you can offer next day delivery to your customers, which means really simple business model, much fewer sales, higher profit per sale, and happy customers because they get their products, they're good quality, they're nice and fast. So I think the main lesson that I took from doing all of this and kind of figuring out the business model I wanted to go down was that choosing the right model and the right suppliers is one of the most critical factors to achieving the results that you want in business with the lowest stress possible. And that's something that we guide you through step by step inside our masterclass program. We help you navigate all those choices effectively, give you the personalized guidance that you need on our Q&A calls that we help with, and really just help you get set up for success right from the start.
And that's right, because ultimately there's going to be work put in, which you made clear. But if you choose the right model, and for the reasons that you've explained, you are putting yourself on the right path towards success. If time, location, and financial freedom is your goal, but it's key that obviously dropshipping comes with so many key terms and reasons why we would get into dropshipping, but as long as you adapt it into the type of dropshipping that we see working well now, not necessarily the most common form of dropshipping that you might come across when you first start researching. So I think people can understand, I certainly understood when I was looking at it, why dropshipping made so much sense. But when you do get started, it's unknown, isn't it? You don't really know what to expect. So can we set some goals? Can we sort of set out for people what they should expect when they're starting out in dropshipping?
Of course, it's difficult because everybody's journey and pace and hunger for success will be different, and even their definition of success will be different. So if you're listening to this and thinking that you need to replace your income and maybe your income's only $2,000 or $3,000 a month, that'll be very different to someone's definition of success who's making £15,000 per month already from their job, and that's a different income to have to replace. So success will be different for each party. But I think to put it tactically, the first few months involves setting up your store, understanding your niche, getting to grips with the market that you're in, and then running your first ads. That's kind of the basics. That's the front loading we talked about, building the foundations of your business. I remember the first few months in my business were all about like learning and just testing different strategies. It's kind of like you're going back to school. You're just absorbing everything again like a sponge, except it's fun because you're thinking, this is building my future. The skills I'm learning here are going to pay my bills for many years to come. So that initial phase is kind of filled with these small victories because you've got to celebrate them as you go. It's like you sign your first supplier. Amazing. Like go and celebrate. You set your ads live. Big milestone. Made your first sale. That's huge. Post about that in our community if you're part of it. Making the first 10K month or first 50K or first 100K. Like these are all great milestones that you've got to mark the occasion of. And I know they all certainly kept me motivated. But it's kind of like learning a new language. When you first join, when at first it just feels foreign. There's all these new terms, especially if you haven't had much experience with e-commerce before. But eventually, by being around the right people, you know how they say the best way to learn a language is just move to that country and immerse yourself in that culture. After a while, you start to pick it up and eventually you become fluent. We had a member in our program recently, Mikey, post the other day that made me laugh. And he was saying a few weeks ago, he didn't understand any of this stuff. And suddenly he's speaking to his friends about top of funnel and conversion rates and AOV and abandoned cart sequences. And it's suddenly like he's learned to speak the language of e-commerce. So I think you've got to accept that when you first start, that won't be, it won't come naturally. It doesn't to anyone, but you'll pick it up over time. And the best method for that is just immersion. Get around a community of other people speaking about it. The other expectation that I want to make sure is very transparent here is that if you're running a serious business, you have to expect to invest both time and money initially. So you treat it as a serious business and it will pay you as a serious business. It's not some get rich quick scheme. Like, we could not be more clear about that. You got to aim for those small wins initially, like you make your first sale or you make your first £1,000, or I don't know, it's just more of a marathon than a sprint. You've got to just mark those milestones as you go. And I think if you set achievable enough milestones along the way, that helps keep you motivated, because you haven't got to delay the gratification until you're like, okay, I've done it. I've replaced my 15 grand a month salary, or whatever like the success milestone for you is. You can say, I made my first sale today. That's cool. Like, maybe you only made £400 in profit, but still that's cool. Maybe that's what you would have made if you gone into your old job. So I think it's just doing that. That's exactly what we've baked into our masterclass, by the way. We make sure that each of these milestones are kind of items that you can check off in a very step-by-step, sequential, bite-sized process, because it can feel overwhelming if you're just trying to piece this together. We put this in a very clear success path so that you kind of tick these things off individually as you go. You hit these targets efficiently and it just keeps up your momentum. So eventually you get to the point where you are hitting the bigger goals, but you've kind of had fun along the journey as well, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. It's so key to have fun and enjoy the journey along the way, because that's what's keep you motivated. So you're not just thinking about your big goals that you've got to like replace your salary. You just look at the incremental steps that you're taking, the wins along the way, and you just enjoy them the whole way. And as you say, I was fortunate to be part of the masterclass program. And so I was clearly shown that it was important to keep celebrating these wins all along the way, because it means you just keep pushing on to the next one and you get that momentum that builds. So I remember clearly when I came in, I had to be so open-minded because I was learning things that I'd never come across before. I had no experience of e-commerce, no experience of dropshipping, didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I didn't know as well. I was learning things that I never thought I'd need to learn. But I was open-minded, I was willing to learn, understood that I was going to invest time, understood I was going to invest some money to get started. And then with that mindset, I was able to just be a sponge, take it all in, and then enjoy all of the wins along the way. I remember even like when I had my business email address signed up, I'd pat myself on the back, celebrate, because it was a win along the way. Setting up your phone number, seeing your store come live on your website for the first time, signing your first supplier. It's a great feeling. And these are all steps on the way to those big goals that you have of time, location, freedom. And it makes the whole thing enjoyable and motivating to keep pushing on.